Hey guys, so I said I would talk to you about my reverse diet, and I think it would be best to start by talking about what a reverse diet is in general. So, a reverse diet is the process of increasing calories, usually from a deficit up into your baseline calorie intake, which would be like your maintenance level, and then usually proceeding past that. And even though that's a really simple definition, it's not necessarily the simplest concept, or at least the easiest concept to apply. So sometimes things that are simple are not easy. And personally, I would say that the reverse diet has been harder for me than the prep. Why is that? There's a number of factors. So I have some notes here, so I'm going to kind of refer to those so I keep things organized. So if you see me looking over here, that's what I'm doing. So I got some information about reverse dieting off the Precision Nutrition website. So that's what I'm going to kind of be referring to while I go over what a reverse diet is and some of the challenges you may have with it. So according to the website, reverse dieting is a method that involves slowly and strategically increasing daily food intake, all in an effort to raise your metabolism. So as you know, in order to prep for a contest, you end up taking calories usually pretty dang low, especially in a situation like mine and many others where we did a show and then had a couple more weeks of dieting to do another show. Now, the time between shows can kind of vary for competitors, depending on how lean they came in for their first show. I came in very lean for my first show and was told not to be any drier, any leaner. So I actually got to start my reverse diet after the first show. So the first phase of my reverse diet started about a week after my first show, which was really, really nice because I got to increase food, also decrease cardio in that time between the shows, and I got to start the process of reversing prior to actually finishing nationals. So once I finished nationals, I was already in phase 1 of my reverse, which was nice because hunger was really high. You have a serotonin and dopamine dump right after the show for a variety of reasons. If you come off stimulants, energy is going to be lower, so you're going to tend to crave more food. You also have food after the show, which kind of stimulates your metabolism, but also kicks in the cravings, the hunger. You feel like you burn right through the food, so you're ready for more. So it's nice to start the reverse before the show if you can in a situation like mine, so that you can kind of control for those factors, and it's still pretty challenging even if you can do that. So we think about nutrition in terms of calories in versus calories out, but there's a few factors that come into play with that. So calories in, that's the food you're eating, right? So in a contest prep, you're eating below your maintenance level. So why wouldn't you be losing weight pretty rapidly, necessarily? Because usually by the end, you might be maintaining weight pretty well, and you have to keep decreasing food over time in order to maintain that deficit. Why is that? Because your calories out is changing. And calories out isn't just, oh, cardio, oh, training, oh, walking around. There's a few factors. First off, your BMR, that's how much you burn just as a human laying on the couch with all your bodily functions. That's just how much you burn. That's most of it. So everyone kind of has a different BMR. We know some people who have crazy metabolisms who can eat whatever they want and they tend to burn right through it. You also have to take into consideration NEAT, N-E-A-T, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So that's like you're fidgeting, you're walking around, you're not really like doing cardio. It's just how much you're moving around throughout the day. There's also the thermic effect of food, which is a small percentage, but that's how much you burn just by digesting and eating food. And then there's your EAT, which is your exercise activity thermogenesis, which will be like your cardio and your training and stuff like that. So BMR and NEAT take up like a large portion, and as you go through your deficit, you have less energy. Your body is also smaller, so you burn fewer calories during NEAT, you burn fewer calories during your cardio. You might see that you have to increase cardio quite a bit to keep your heart rate up at the same rate. And then your BMR is going to go down because your body mass is smaller and your body's trying to compensate and not burn through everything that you're storing as a way of survival. So overall, your calories out are going to go down throughout prep, which is why you have to compensate by usually increasing cardio over time. When you reverse, you're going to reverse decently slowly, like 10 to 20% of calories. You're going to start adding. And you can add it through a variety of methods. Usually want to increase fat a bit, especially for females, just for the hormone regulation. But most of your calories that you're going to add are going to be through carbs as well. As you increase, you're going to have a few things happen in your body. Adaptive thermogenesis, your basal metabolic rate will increase. You will hopefully have more capacity for working out, so your training will get a little bit harder as you have more energy. Your NEAT should also increase in theory if you have a bit more energy. And your digestive speed will increase as well. So when you're prepping, your digestion slows so you can absorb more nutrients. So as you take in more food, that process kicks up. So you're digesting fewer nutrients from your food, which may sound bad, but it means that you are kind of like burning through calories a bit more. You're not necessarily absorbing everything that you eat. So in order to reverse, how does that work? If you don't have a coach, you're going to want to increase your food incrementally. So like I said, 10 to 20%, you need to be tracking your food first off. Then you need to decide, what is my maintenance? You can figure that out through a calculator, or if you kind of know your maintenance because you came from your maintenance prior to your diet, you can start there. And then you need to figure out your macros. Like I said, you'll likely be increasing carbs, some fats initially, and protein shouldn't have been taken down too low throughout the dieting process, but that's certainly something that you want to prioritize. So if you did have to cut protein, that would probably be the first thing to bring up. And then you want to monitor your progress. And the thing is, it's hard to be objective with yourself. So to monitor progress, you really need to have objective measures that you're tracking. And that is through weight, which you have to consider some of that will be water initially. And then you need to maybe use measurements, maybe pictures, as many forms of objective progress tracking you can use. It's going to be beneficial. I wouldn't go crazy and try to track everything because you don't want to become obsessive with the numbers, but having a few points of reference other than just weight can really help stay objective through the process. Why is reversing hard? Well, after your show, you kind of lose having a goal. For me, I exceeded my expectations by being able to go to nationals and actually win my pro card. And after, there's so much excitement. But then once I came home, it was like, well, I'm not going to keep competing this year. So what is my goal? I don't know when I'm competing again. I don't have something to look forward to each day, such as the weight loss, getting leaner, seeing my body change in a direction that's fun to watch. You also just generally have like a neurotransmitter dump, like I said. Serotonin and dopamine dump. You've been pushing every single day towards a singular goal. All of your actions have been directed towards this goal, and you've seen the progress daily, and then all of a sudden it's gone. And you kind of lose the focus. You don't have the goal, and your actions aren't directed towards something specific, which can be really, really challenging. It was nice to come home and feel like I could breathe again, but then again, I lost focus. And I think that happens to a lot of people. And you can feel pretty down about it because you feel like, what was it for? Even if you achieved your goal, regardless of placing or anything, it's just hard to not have something to work towards. So it's really challenging not to have something to work towards. And then for me, for a lot of people, after the show you eat off plan, right? Which was really exciting, and you need that release. The key is reining it in, getting back on track, especially when you don't have a goal anymore. It can be easy to just let loose and go on maybe even like a binging spree. For me, I didn't really do that. Not in a normal sense, I guess. So after the show, I had my free meal, brownies, ice cream, felt like crap. Woke up the next day, felt better. So we went to brunch, went to dinner, got some drinks, that whole thing. But back by Monday, I was on plan again. I really liked my routine. I needed structure, and just with my background with disordered eating, it can be really hard for me to not have a lot of structure in my diet. So I find a lot of comfort being on a plan. So it was easy for me to get back on plan to a degree. I will say hunger was super high. Also, if you're competing for a show, you're often on stimulants to help burn fat and increase metabolism. Well, when you come off those stimulants, you're already pretty drowsy from the food, from the neurotransmitter changes, from the long weekend, likely dehydration. And then you take out the stimulants, and suddenly your life force, that's how I felt, is gone. And I was utterly drained. So you're exhausted. And it's just really hard to cope with that. I also was sleeping about 3 or 4 hours throughout prep, every so often getting like a good 7 hours, but all that caught up with me personally, and then going back to night shift on top of that was really, really challenging. So I just felt completely drained. So while I did not have the food binging, I did and have been struggling with caffeine overconsumption, almost trying to like one for one make up for the stimulants. But there's so many other factors contributing to fatigue as well that even with a lot of caffeine in, it doesn't really simulate the effects of the stimulants, which almost had like a euphoric state for me throughout prep. I felt very energized, felt very motivated, and that combined with having a goal to work towards really kept me going. And then after the show, the combination of everything left me feeling super duper drained. So I'm trying to back off caffeine now. That's something that I'm still kind of struggling with. Another issue that I had was I was eating only asparagus in terms of vegetables throughout prep. So after prep, I thought, okay, well, it would be okay for me to add in other veggies. And I went ham. And your digestion just isn't ready for that much fiber or variety after months of restricting. So digestion was off for me really, really badly. Lots of bloating, stomach pain, and then on top of the caffeine, which were mostly artificially sweetened drinks or coffee with stevia, my digestion has been wrecked. So I'm still kind of dealing with that as well. And I'm cutting back on caffeine, which is helping me cut back on the artificial sweeteners, but I'm still having some issues. So I'm learning what is working and what isn't working for my body, and I found that I'm probably going to have to cut out almost everything with artificial sweeteners in it until my gut kind of repairs itself. So that can be a struggle after the show. If you're binging on top of that with unhealthy foods or things that aren't on your plan, that can also contribute to digestive distress. So it's thinking about your gut as the center of everything in your body, such as hormones. You really need to be paying attention to how your digestion goes after a show and addressing any issues that arise with that. Other issues, mood fluctuations, that kind of goes along with the fatigue. And then if you're on any hormones throughout prep, your mood can fluctuate quite a bit. So you need to be prepared for that and try to be objective as possible in terms of knowing this is a hormone issue, this will regulate. You need to be communicating those things with your coach. Make sure you're following any protocols that would be appropriate for that. Also, since you're working towards a goal throughout prep and seeing yourself get leaner, it can be really, really challenging to see your body get softer after a show. Especially if you're eating off track and you're putting on body fat a little bit too quickly. Even if you're not, you're putting on body fat. And you need to, after the show, to regulate everything and get back to a healthy state. At the show, you're not healthy. So you really need to get back into a calorie maintenance at least pretty quickly right after a show. Which means you're going to put on some body fat and it's going to be hard to see. Hard to see yourself change in that direction. So those are some things you can kind of struggle with. And then the key is knowing when to reel it all back in. When to refocus. When you say, okay, I'm back on track now. I'm going to treat this growing season with the same intentionality that I did throughout prep. Just like you had a goal for body, your body weight, your body image, your body fat, whatever, throughout prep, you need to have objective goals for off season. It's not really off season. It's growing season. And it should be approached from the same perspective as prep, where you say, I'm 16 weeks out, I'm 15 weeks out, I'm 12 weeks out. Well, off season should be structured the same. You have so many weeks before you would potentially start prepping for a show. Even if it's going to be months, think about it in weeks. Set that intentionality for yourself and say, okay, I am 20 weeks out from starting prep, which gives me 20 weeks to build an even better foundation from which to cut fat down during prep. That means that it's time to put in the work. And each week now counts just as much, if not more, than your prep weeks. Because once you build up your body, you start cutting down. It's going to reveal everything that you've built in these weeks leading back up into your prep. So for me, I'm thinking if I decide to do a show late spring, that gives me until maybe February to bulk. Well, that's like 20 weeks or something like that. I did the math the other day. But regardless, 20 weeks. Well, it's the countdown now, which means that this is week 19, right? Which means this week, I need to think about, okay, what am I doing at 19 weeks out from prep to prepare myself to prep? Am I eating on plan? Am I attending to my digestion? Am I attending to my sleep? Am I training hard? Am I training with progressive overload? Am I over-consuming caffeine, which could stress my adrenals and affect my ability to put on muscle? Am I attending to my stress levels? There's a lot of things you need to be thinking about and taking just as seriously now as you would during a prep, because it's all going to matter. And if you set your body up to function poorly now, your prep is going to be even more difficult. So approaching your off season, your growing season, your improvement season, in the same way that you would approach prep can really, really change your mentality. In the same way you need to have goals to work towards. So maybe you're not looking at body weight necessarily, you're going to be tracking it, but you might have a body weight goal. I think it's better to have strength goals most of the time and then have certain physique goals. So for myself, I want to grow my glutes, I want to grow my hamstrings, I want to grow my back. So it's going to be important for me to be measuring these things so I have like an objective form of progress tracking throughout this time. And I know that I'm working towards my goals if those things are growing. That way I shift my focus away from the body fat that I'm putting on or the weight that I'm gaining to the objective measures that I'm actually trying to focus on during this off season. I shouldn't be concerned about the body fat because one, I have a coach, and two, if I'm reversing correctly, the body fat should increase pretty slowly. And three, my goal isn't a body fat goal. My goal is muscular size. So those are the things I should be focusing on. So that's some ways to kind of overcome like the mental challenges. And then in terms of the hunger, part of it's just dealing with it. It'll regulate over time, and as food increases, hunger should become much more controlled and likely won't even be an issue later on. You need to make sure that you're hydrating well, that you're staying present when you eat, and that you are staying on whatever plan you have, whether that's through a coach or a plan that you set for yourself. Applying that intentionality to your diet is really, really important because during this time you have a lot of potential to put on muscle. Even though your metabolism is increasing, if you're not applying the concepts of reverse dieting correctly or properly, you still have a high potential to put on fat during this time. Your body is going to hold on to things because it knows that it's coming from a restricted state and it's time to refeed. So you can either appropriately apply the concepts in order to build muscle during this time and build quite a bit of muscle, or if you're not increasing activity or training hard or you're overeating consistently, you're going to have a high potential for fat gain. So you need to think about that and not be stressed about the fat gain that is inherent to reverse dieting, but make sure that you're doing the reverse correctly so that you can prevent any unnecessary fat gain. So some other tips to cope with reverse dieting. You need to accept that you're not going to be stage lean forever, that you're actually not going to be stage lean probably even a few days after the show, period. You can't maintain it, and you're never going to reach your body goals if you try to do so. 2, apply that same intentionality as you did on prep. 3, know that it's short term. 4, stop and enjoy your food. 5, use this time with increased energy and less time spent in the gym doing cardio and all of that, posing and all of that, to reconnect with family and friends that you may have disconnected with throughout prep. Embrace your daily bodily changes. Look at yourself in the mirror and think, I'm getting stronger, I'm looking better, and I'm working towards my goals every day. Positive self-talk is so important, and you can convince yourself of something if you tell yourself it enough. So if you can look in the mirror every day and repeat those things, or repeat some positive messages about your body, you'll start to internalize those and accept that you are working towards a goal every day, even if that goal isn't leanness anymore. Talk to others who are going through the same process. When I first said that I was having post-show blues, I posted it on my Instagram. I had a lot of positive feedback from people saying, me too. And it was really cool to talk to people who are struggling with the same issues and realize we're not alone. And just that camaraderie can really make you feel like other people understand and you can get through it. Continue to track non-physique related parameters. Strength, energy, digestion, mental acuity, your relationships. Track those things. Make sure that they're improving. They should be as food increases and you have more energy. So those are really important parameters to track and can help you determine how quickly you're making progress outside of just looking at your body. Lastly, be honest with your coach and be honest with yourself. Stop and say, am I working towards my goals daily? Are the actions that I'm doing contributing to my goals? And if not, be honest with your coach. Tell them how you're feeling. Make sure they're tracking all of those parameters. Make sure they're aware of your mental state and any struggles you might be having with food. It's super common to deal with binging and stuff after a show. So if that's something that you're struggling with, you need to tell your coach because they can adjust the plan or help you with some coping strategies to work through those issues. It's not something to feel guilty about. It's something to stop, step back and say, okay, this is a challenge for me and I need to develop some strategies to work through it. That's it. It's not about guilt. It's not about being a weak person. you've made it through a prep or a diet, you already know that you're not a weak person. So this is just your way of coping, and you have to find alternative methods to cope, period. So what does a reverse look like? Like I said, you would be increasing calories about 10 to 20%, perhaps a little faster if you're coming from a really low body fat percentage that is not sustainable for health for a very long period of time. For myself, I started my first phase of my reverse between the two shows, which was really awesome. And on average, I was eating about 1,800 calories a day at that point. So I wasn't quite up to my maintenance per se, but pretty close. And I was still doing cardio, still on stimulants, so I was still kind of losing fat during that time. I continued that leading up to my second show, Nationals, and then I got back on that plan for a week after Nationals, after I had my free meals over that weekend. So it's pretty common that you'd get back on your diet prior to peak week after the show, just to get back on track. After that week, I started phase 2, which was about 2,250 calories a day. So I went up on average about 450 calories a day, which is quite a bit. And sometimes people will start with about 200 a day to keep things moderate, but I tolerated it very well, and it was important for me to get back into a healthy body fat percentage, especially for hormone function. So I've been in phase 2 since after my first week after Nationals for the last 2 weeks. So hopefully by Thursday we'll be transitioning into phase 3. I don't know what that'll look like yet, and I'll keep you updated on how I increase food at that point. Coach also mentioned potentially adding in free meals, which is going to be another challenge for me mentally, but I think it's something that we can talk about and how to approach that, and I'll kind of share how I work through that process and how we apply those meals intelligently. So reverse dieting is simple in theory, but it's not necessarily easy. It can be really challenging, and it's really important that you find coping skills that work for you, especially post-show. It's really important that you think about these things prior to your show and prepare for any of the potential negative outcomes that I've experienced, that you've heard from other people, or that you know that you've dealt with in the past. Prepare for those and have a plan. Understand that your body's going to change, that you're going to put on body fat, and learn to apply positive self-talk. So I'm still working through some of my issues. I'll keep you guys updated on how those are going and what I'm doing to work through them. But I hope this was helpful. I hope you know that you're not alone in these struggles. And if you have any questions, please comment below and I can address them on Instagram or in another video, depending on how many questions you guys have. Let me know what else you'd like to see, and I look forward to sharing this reverse process with you. Please like, comment, subscribe, and you can follow me on Instagram at Old Soul Made New, where I post food from my reverse and daily challenges and daily wins. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you next time.